Welcome to this Animal Control Subcommittee hearing meeting. We're going to open the meeting with karakia this afternoon. He karakia tātou, tue ki ringa, tue ki raro, tue ki roto, tue ki waho, tue tātou te tangata, ki te kaupapa o te hui nei, ki te kaupapa o te rangi nei, mauri ora ki e tātou katoa. Bind above, bind below, bind within, bind beyond, bind us the people to the purpose of our meeting, to the purpose of this day, and breathe life into all of us. I'm Chris Hill. I'm chairing the hearing for this afternoon. I'm a Golden Bay Ward Councillor and chair of the Environment and Regulatory Committee here at Council, which is why I chair these hearings. And we'll go around the room and just introduce who we are so you know who we are.
Kip Mailing, Richmond Ward Councillor, and I chair the Policy and Strategy Committee.
Hello and welcome. I'm Mike Kinross, Metri Waimea Councillor.
So the three of us form the hearing panel members, and we have staff here to support the process.
Senior Governance Advisor, Kelsey McLean. Governance Officer, Katie Latham.
I'm Sandy Vale, the Regulatory Support Officer with Council.
And you might introduce yourselves so I know who's who, but if you pull the microphone towards you closer on the table, if you press the little button on the bottom of it, a red light should come on.
My name is Dina. I'm sharing the ownership of Stanley, our dog, with my partner Paul, who cannot be here today because he's very sick.
My name is Pia. I'm Dina's good friend from Golden Bay, and I'm here to support her, and our good friend of Sandy, the dog, too.
Thank you. And to note that we do have some people online, including media. So Catherine Hubbard is online from a media organisation, and also to let you know that the meeting's being recorded by Council and then it's made available on the Council's YouTube channel. So sometimes media articles appear as a result of these hearings, so just so that you know, you won't be surprised if you see something appear in the paper and it might have something that you've said quoted in there. It's not to put any fear into you, but just to sometimes people get a surprise and haven't really quite realised that might happen. So also the toilets are out through the door on the left. Welcome to those on Zoom. And there's somebody on Zoom, I think, from the legal firm that's helping you out. Yep. Fire exits are here. You see the exit side above the door. And that's all, I think, for housekeeping. We have no apologies for today. Are there any declarations of interest? And I'll just outline the process of what happens. So we'll get underway in a minute. And so you have the opportunity to make a statement to the panel members. And we may ask questions during that time or when you're finished. And then this regulatory support officer, Sandy, will explain the Council's position and speak to the report that's been produced. You'll have a right of reply after that. So you can bring forward responses to the report or anything new that you want to bring forward. And then when that part's complete, then the meeting will be adjourned. And so you'll be asked to leave and we'll go into a deliberations time and make a decision. And you'll see from the report that we'll either uphold the classification or we'll rescind it. So that's the only decision that we can make here, is based on those two things. And then we'll let you know if you're willing to go after that, or you can come back into the room when we pass a resolution for either of those resolutions, and then we'll make a decision in the open meeting, and then we'll bring the meeting to a close. So that's the process. If you have any questions about that process.
Yeah, actually, yes. I think there are some informations that were blacked out in the statement.
Yes, if your microphone on, just if you turn yours off.
I think there are some informations that were blacked out in the statement. How do we handle that? If there are any questions about that, I'm happy to discuss everything, but without the media.
Yes, so there are privacy issues and legal privilege matters. So so that's why the redactions have happened, because the report's available to all of the public.
That's fine.
And if there are relevant aspects that you'd want to bring forward that have been redacted, then we'd go into a confidential session here.
Okay.
Which means there's certain things we have to do legally, which excludes the public from the
Yes.
meeting. So
I believe that might be necessary in between.
okay, we'll address that as we go along if that's the case.
Thank you.
Yes, if you just turn your microphones off if you're not using them, because they just one sort of works at one. That's all I need to cover. Yep. So it's over to you to make your statement, and I'm not sure if it's Grace that's speaking with you or for you, or I have here Molly Batts. So it's Grace. Yeah. Okay. So it's over to you to make your statement and for Grace to contribute to that. Thank you.
I have agreed with Grace that she's doing the talking because of my health issues, and that I would just add some additional details as necessary.
Sure. Are you there, Grace?
Yes, I am. Can you guys hear me all right through my microphone?
Yes. And have you been able to hear us?
Yes, I have been. I've been able to follow along. Thank you very much.
Okay. Over to you.
Perfect. Yes, so my name is Grace Paddington. I'm here today speaking on behalf of Dina. I work at the firm Molly Batts, who has been assisting her on this matter. Just again bringing to attention the difficulty of the situation has had on Dina and her partner. I won't discuss particulars, but I'm sure you guys can appreciate her broader circumstances in bringing this forward. In addressing the topic today, that is the classification for Stanley, as you're aware, the council may classify Stanley or any dog as menacing where they believe that it may pose a threat to any person or domestic animal because of observed or reported behaviours. In making your determination today, Dina is of the opinion that that classification should be rescinded on the grounds that there's a number of things that the council should consider. The first is the evidence that forms the basis of the classification. So Dina was made aware of the classification when she was given a report on the 11th of April that cited an incident that occurred on the 27th of January, that Stanley had attacked another dog. We do highlight that there were some shortcomings in this report. The first is that it was uncorroborated. So the only witnesses there were the owners of the other dog, which we believe should be considered. Because they were the only ones there, obviously their dog was also involved in this incident. So they won't want their dog to be blamed for any aggression or incidents that may have occurred. We also think it's important to draw attention to the fact that there is known tension between Dina and the people whose dog was attacked. They are neighbours, and there has been some ongoing tension there, which is a relevant consideration, we believe. So the council should be cautioned attaching too much weight to this report, we believe, on the basis that the circumstances, again, uncorroborated, and that there are other reported behaviours that I will refer to shortly that see Stanley as a well-socialised, non-aggressive dog, which we believe should outweigh any kind of weight that is attached to this initial report. The second is about steps taken to prevent the threat. Before discussing this, we just want to draw attention again to what was raised in our initial letter, where we raised and were rebutting the classification of Stanley, which was the reason behind the classification and how it links to the incident. So the reason that this incident occurred was due to the fact that Stanley was off leash, that he had left the property, and there was no control over the dog. Whereas the purpose of the classification, which requires the imposition to muzzle Stanley when he is in public to prevent a further attack, is disconnected from that grounds. The issue here was whether or not Stanley was in control. And in light of that, there have been numerous steps taken by Dina and her partner in order to prevent any kind of threat occurring. So they appreciate that there's a responsibility for them to keep their dog under control, and so have taken numerous steps, which has cost them significant time, money, and a mental toll on them in responding to this. So what they've done is that they've installed a higher fence on their property. They have a new gate installed that automatically closes and locks behind them, which addresses the main reason that they believe that this incident occurred, was that Stanley came out of the gate behind Dina's partner, and he was unable to realise this. The fact that the gate now closes mitigates the risk of this happening. And as well, there are self-closing hinges on the entrance doors to the home itself, so Stanley is unable to leave the home in this way. A large external fence has been installed towards the roadside, and again, they've checked the perimeter fence and checked and repaired this to, again, minimise any risk that Stanley will be leaving the property. Further socialisation for training for Stanley has also taken place, and these reports show that, but even prior to this, that he was seen as a well-socialised, non-hostile dog. He got along well with other dogs, which you can see referred to in the reports from both Nelson Vet, from Dog Almighty and Canine Know-How at the back of the agenda. So both of these refer to Stanley as having calm, gentle temperament. There was no signs of aggression. The Canine Know-How report also reflects on the steps taken by Dina and her partner to secure the property, which reduces the risk or the threat of Stanley being off leash and these kinds of incidents occurring. These steps have minimised the threat, so in our opinion, there's no need for the imposition of the menacing dog classification. Again, firstly, because it is unconnected to the reason that this incident occurred in the first place, which was the control of the dog, and secondly, that steps have been taken to ensure control over Stanley, and therefore are grounds to rescind that classification. Dina has also been accommodating throughout this process. She communicated that she was willing for Stanley to be muzzled for a period of 6 months if that was going to take concerns away from the neighbours and other people who had concerns about Stanley's behaviour while further socialisation occurs, which was stated we don't believe is necessary to prevent any distress occurring to any people or other animals, but again is a concession that Dina and her partner have indicated they are willing to make at this point if the council deems that necessary. Again, looking at what the council considers, so matters relied upon in support of the objection.
Grace, sorry to interrupt you, Grace. Your sound faded away there. I can hear you, but not so clearly as we were hearing you.
Apologies. What was the last? Apologies. What was the last point that you guys?
Just a couple of sentences ago.
All right.
Thank you.
Here we go. Again, just referring to the fact that Dina has been accommodating throughout this process and has indicated that she is willing to make a concession to keep Stanley muzzled for a period of 6 months, if that were to help mitigate any concerns that the council may have. As we've stated, we don't believe that to be necessary to prevent distress. We believe that it has already been prevented by the installation of the gates, and with the further reports showing that Stanley is a well-socialised, non-aggressive dog. Again, looking at the further matters that can be considered include those that were relied upon in support of the objection. As outlined in our initial report, there are several reports that have been made that report Stanley's behaviour, which I referred to from Dog Almighty and Canine Know-How. This included specifically Stanley behaving friendly with other dogs. He was non-aggressive. When he was approached by dogs that were aggressive towards him, he was non-reactive. And both of these reports show that they do not believe he poses a threat to any other dog. So again, we don't believe that the classification of menacing is necessary, as Stanley is not a dog that poses a threat to the public. Yes, and so other relevant matters, we're not saying that again.
Grace, Dina here. Give me a second. I would like to supply 3 further documents regarding that. The first one is the picture of the SPCA when we adopted Stanley.
Kelsey, would you just pull the microphone closer for Dina? Yeah, thank you.
So the first one is from the SPCA where we adopted Stanley, which gives part of the character reference. Unfortunately, SPCA didn't have the full one anymore, but I had this still on my computer. And the second one is from the Victory Vets veterinarian, Grace Miller, where Stanley had his X-ray. Also another character reference. And the third one is again from Canine Know-How, from 7 walks in public under supervision between the 5th of May 25 and the 24th of June 25.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like Grace to continue? Yes, thank you.
Yes. So drawing as well to the fact that council can include any other matters they believe relevant. Again, just reiterating the fact that we have other reported and observed behaviour of Stanley being non-aggressive. So we believe that this outweighs any concerns that may be held in the initial report made or the initial report relied on in January. The shortcomings in that report, which mean that not too much weight should be attached to it. We are in no way asserting that that report is incorrect in any sense, but however, the wider circumstances we believe should be considered in attaching too much weight to that, while the reports from Dog Almighty, Canine Know-How, and further reports from Nelson Vets all indicate that Stanley's observed behaviour is not aggressive. Again, drawing attention to the fact that the reason for the muzzling would be in order to prevent further attacks. That preventative measure we believe is no longer necessary, and in the first case was not appropriate, as it was intended to look at the behaviour and the incident of the dog, which Stanley was not in control. The issue in that case was control, not necessarily his behaviour. Yes. So yes, in summary, we believe that the council should rescind the menacing classification on what we have outlined.
Thank you. I do have a question,
Yes.
and the other councillors may too. So do you accept that the attack happened?
Yes.
I just thought, I think it was exaggerated and ballooned up. But I definitely believe that he was out, and I definitely believe that he ran up there because there were sticks involved.
So in the description of the report around that he came rushing towards them, growling with heckles up, and attacked their daughter's dog, And
But-
bit the dog. I just want to get clear about that. You
Yeah.
accept that your dog did bite the other dog.
No, I don't think he bit. I think it was a claw injury. I have a picture here from the 13th of the 3rd. Because of my circumstances, which are extreme, the claws were not cut in time. I have a picture here of a wall of my friends where Stanley tried to look out of the window, and the result is a deep scratch in her wall. The claws were cut on the day of the X-ray because the veterinarian had pointed out that it is necessary, and I do not think that my dog has bitten. And I think that the veterinarian report does not verify that either. And I also think that the other party's owner does not state a bite either in her statement. She just says that there was a wound.
So you accept that your dog attacked the other dog, but not that it bit it.
I think he ran up because he wanted the stick as well, but I don't think that it was per se an attack. I just think he wanted to get the stick and he scratched the other dog.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from either of you? Yes, Councillor Kinnemont.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Couple of questions. Is Stanley desexed?
Yes,
And secondly, is Stanley microchipped?
yes, of course.
Thank you. That's it.
And vaccinated and everything that is needed and well behaved.
So I also had a question about to you, Grace. So you're saying that the issue here is, it's a bit difficult, isn't it, if there's not an acceptance of the dog having bitten another dog, which was the basis for the.
Apologies, you just cut
menacing-
out there. Could you restate your question? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. So I'm just saying that I was going to ask, you're making the point that the issue here is that the dog Stanley could get out of the property and become unleashed and uncontrolled. Not that actually while free and roaming attacked and bit another dog. So the emphasis is on a lot of reference to how friendly he is, how he's non-aggressive. So that's why I'm asking if you accept that Stanley bit Arlo.
Yes. Sorry, Dina. We don't necessarily accept that there was a dog bite. I believe in our initial letter, there was some questioning about the nature of the altercation between the dogs, whether or not it was a bite, if it was a scratch, whether it was necessarily aggressive. There was also, I believe, some note made of the breed of Stanley. He kind of has a ridged back, I believe, which they believe may have made him appear that his hackles were raised, or but that he was aggressive, whereas that's just the natural stance of Stanley, just with his fur and things. But yes, we believe that here the issue was that there was no control over the dog, which led to the altercation, then strictly the aggressive nature of Stanley. And in that case, that's why the incident occurred, and that the intention of the menacing classification would be to prevent further similar incidents, which we don't believe would be the case if Stanley was muzzled, because he wasn't. The issue wasn't necessarily that he was aggressive for the incident in January. It was that there was no control over the dog, which caused the incident between them, if that makes sense.
It doesn't really to me, actually, to be honest, Grace. So that presupposes, I think, that that it's not possible for him to be out and not attack another dog or rush, or you're making the focus that if he's safe in the bounds of the property, then all is good. And the issue is that if he gets out. But really, the issue at the heart of this really is that we have to ensure that no dogs cause a nuisance or injury to other dogs or people.
Yes.
So
Right.
so you're
Oh,
saying
yeah.
the issue is that that Stanley hasn't been controlled, he's got out, and that's the problem if he gets out. But actually the problem is that if he bites another dog, so you can imagine he could get out but not cause any harm or nuisance. So I get what you're hanging your hat on,
Right.
but I think it's a bit more complicated than that.
Yes, I understand your position. I understand, yeah, that distinction. In your eyes, the issue does come down to whether or not Stanley was aggressive and caused this attack, which we do not necessarily believe that there is enough evidence in front of the council. When we look at Stanley's observed and reported behaviour, we have the incident report from January, which is, again, we believe there are some shortcomings with that report. And so in that circumstance, if we're going to be looking at his reported behaviour, we have reported behaviour from at least 2 other companies and external parties that have taken Stanley on controlled walks and things and seen that he is a non-aggressive dog, that his recall is good and things like that. So we don't necessarily believe that the menacing classification is necessary to mitigate that threat, because he is a generally well-behaved dog, and that this incident, it is not 100% certain what occurred and what led to the injuries to both Stanley and the other dog, Arlo.
Thank you. Councillor Kinnemont has another question, and then we'll go to Sandy Vale for the council report. Thank you.
I suppose this is to Grace and to you as well. The information that you're giving us, saying he's a controlled dog, when under control, he's a good dog, he's a kind dog, loving dog, and he'll do as per what the instructions are. But in this instance here, somehow he got out from your property and was uncontrolled. So the evidence here says he's good when there's people about and he's under control, but when he's out on his own, he's not controlled and he has attacked another dog. That's what we're looking at, not how good he is when he's under control and being with, like yourself, or other dog behaviour specialists. So can you understand where I'm coming from and saying, yes, you understand that the information you're giving us, it's supportive evidence, but it still does not prove that when he's on his own, he's not controlled, he cannot be constrained. Are you able to give me some feedback on that comment?
Grace, have you got a response?
Apologies, I didn't catch the very end of that.
Sorry, I'll make it more of a concise question.
Thank you.
The evidence you've given us today supporting the dog's ability to be under control and is a non-threatening dog, under control is the evidence, but also we're sitting around this table here saying that when he's not under control and he's out on his own, that he has attacked another dog. So the evidence you're giving us is good when he's under control, but when he's not under control, he's off doing his own thing. So can you see the difference when we're looking at that in your evidence, and that why, can you see why we're looking at different evidence here, different proof?
Yes, I understand. Apologies, just collecting my thoughts. I believe, again, as Dina has said, about the incident that did take place, that there was an attack that took place and that we admit that there was injury caused to the other dog. So your concern is that when the dog is off leash, that he will not be well behaved. I understand where your concern is coming from. However, I'm unsure as to what evidence we could put forward other than what we have already provided, that he is generally, the nature of Stanley generally is good. I'm not sure how we would otherwise see his behaviour when he is away from control. And I think, again, it comes back to if the concern is about, I'm just finding it difficult to structure this, because the concern is either, is it the behaviour of the dog and then the control of the dog. Dina and her partner have taken all steps that they can to, as we've said, to show that there is no risk of this occurring again with the efforts they have made with the offences and things, that Stanley will be under control and therefore these kinds of incidents will not occur again, because he will no longer be in public uncontrolled, that there is no risk to any other dog in that sense. But I'm unsure how else we would be able to show Stanley's behaviour in an uncontrolled environment when we have to observe his behaviour somehow. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Grace. We're going to go to the council report, and then after that you'll have an opportunity to respond to the report. And if there's anything new that I'd like to bring forward, then you could do that then too. Yes.
Well, I just want to point out that we aren't really sure whether it was a dog bite or whether it was the wall that injured the other dog, because the vet did only just said about the dog fight, but not a bite. And so I don't think that this dog tends to bite other dogs, whether he's under control or not under control. There were 3 dogs playing with each other, and he's just used to joining in with the game.
The vet reports describes a dog fight wound.
Wound, yeah.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean bite, because he had the big claws. And the claws also injured your mums because they were too long.
It might as well be a dog wound.
Not a bite.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you thinking it's less of a concern if there's a fight, he's attacked, he's rushed towards them, and if the wound was made by his claws, you're thinking that's less of a concern than if he bit?
No, I'm just saying the claws are being kept shorter now because of our health issues. It was the first time ever that the claws had to be cut at all. I wasn't even aware that they're too long. I still would like to supply this picture here of the wall of my friend and the claws. And I also would like to supply the picture where you can see the constantly raised hackles of my dog because of a patch on his back.
Okay, thank you, Kelsey. You'll pass those to us.
The picture also shows my dog's tail injury that came from that day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. If I could
Grace, you've got something extra? One last comment before we go to the report?
Yes, just addressing your statement about whether or not the claw attack, the clawing was less severe than the bite. I think as well, if the injury, which we are uncertain what it was caused by, if it was caused by the claw, I believe it again lends to whether or not there was aggression in the first instance. If Stanley appears to have his hackles raised just from the way that the dog looks, if he's running towards other dogs to engage in play, and considering you can see the kind of dog Stanley is, if a dog was then injured due to the long claws just from play, rough play between dogs, which would not be uncommon if they were both going for a stick or something, it may not be an attack in the way it's construed, or the attack in the way that you would think if a dog was biting another dog versus one dog being injured in play and another dog reacting, which we can see may be the case here with the injuries that were caused to Stanley as well, suffering damage to his tail.
Thank you. We're going to move over to Sandy. If you'd like to speak to the report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll take the report as being read. So in summary, Council based its decision on the statements of the other party and Dina's statement as well. Took into account that Stanley has escaped from the property, that he has attacked another dog which was playing on the beach as per the report from the other party. The other party said that that the dog did attack. The attacked dog did require veterinary treatment, and I do realise that you have paid the vet bills in question. So thank you for that. So when determining the outcome, I took into account that this was the first reported aggression incident against Stanley, that you had actually paid for the damages caused. I took into account that the owners of Stanley wasn't there, so the dog was out of its property and not under control of a person. Whilst I did look at all the reports that you sent in from the psychologists, occupational therapists, letters in support, the vet report in relation to the tail injury of Stanley, and the dog behaviourists and trainers, these weren't included in the report as they were not part of the decision-making process. A lot of those things were, especially with the dog trainers, it was after the event when the owners were present. So I haven't had any evidence to say that if the dog was able to escape from the property again, that a similar situation could not occur. So based on the evidence presented to us, we believe that Stanley should be classified as menacing, requiring him to be muzzled in public to ensure the safety of members of the public and other domesticated animals. And I'd base that on the lower end of the classifications that were that I'm able to use under legislation.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors, of the report? Yep.
Through you, Madam Chair, I have got one question, and it's probably about timing. Grace, if I can call you Grace, commented that the first time that Stanley's owner heard about it was on the 11th of April, and the attack was on the end of January, 27th of January. Now, can you just give me a heads up as to why there's such a large delay of 6 to 8 weeks?
This is
Maybe I'm wrong.
it's just a response from Sandy. Yeah.
So that was due. So there was interactions between the dog control officer and Ms. Schultz, emails backwards and forwards. So she was aware of it earlier than that. The actual classification papers were sent later on.
Anything, Councillor Mayling? No. Did you have any reason to doubt the statement that was given by the owners of Arlo when they described the attack, that there was dog fight wound? Have you got any reason to doubt the validity of that account?
No, nothing that was presented to me put me in any doubt that there was an incident between the two dogs. I had nothing to go on to say that they were making it up or anything like that. Stanley was the dog that was not under control. He's escaped from his property. He's gone down there and he's attacked another dog.
Okay, thank you. Grace and Dina, if you've got any, this is a time where you can make a final statement to us as a summary, and if there's any points from the report or Sandy's discussion just now that you want to respond to, this is your time to do that, and then when you've finished that part, we'll adjourn the meeting to make a decision.
How do I please discuss something without the press? Because I have a little bit more to say about the whole situation to give some understanding. So you said before we can discuss something in private as well.
If it's relevant to the incident of the dog attack, so we've seen all of the background information you provided about your situation, but in terms of the decision being made today, we'll be making a decision based on whether we think there's any threat in the future of Stanley attacking and causing wounds through a dog fight again. That's the basis of whether we rescind the decision or not. So in terms of all the background information about things that have happened in the past, That's not going to give weight in terms of the issue that's at the heart of this, which is whether there's any threat at all with Stanley, with others. So I understand your background. I understand the situation you're in.
Through the chair, sorry, just to add, so the panel members have received the unredacted agenda.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm unsure if it's anything further than that, but they have received the unredacted. Yeah. Thank you.
Do you have anything in response, Grace?
Yes, just very quickly. There was some mention about how there were some further reports provided that weren't relied upon in the final decision, relating to kind of character witnesses for Stanley and things like the dog training, and how they weren't considered, which is understandable when the initial report was made. However, as you've just said, we're looking forward as to whether or not it's necessary in future for Stanley to have this classification in order to reduce the threat. The ones that were included, and I think in particular, I'd like to draw attention to one of the reports that Dina has provided today, which outlines observations between the 5th of May and the 24th of June as to Stanley's behaviour, which I think, again, as we've been saying, Stanley's behaviour, we believe, is like non-aggressive and things. But looking forward, there's nothing to indicate, I believe, that there would be any risk to any person or dog moving forward as his behaviour. Further training has taken place, further socialisation. In particular, on the 24th of June, he goes through Marsden Valley with Sarah. This is on the second page of this report, and says that he has good interactions with both the large and small dogs on and off leash. So he's off leash, so not under direct control of any person, of the owner or Sarah, the person taking Stanley for a walk. Again, at the conclusion, says that he's consistently friendly, non-reactive. So even when he's not under direct control, the owner is there, but he's not on a leash, that he can't be pulled back away from other dogs, I believe is worth considering when we're looking forward into the future, that since the attack, his behaviour has shown no aggression, that there's no reason to believe that there would be further attacks, because as I have said, he's off leash, and there's been no further instances of that. And again, drawing attention to the fact, again, not to dissuade or say anything about the reliability of the report. Clearly, an incident has taken place where Stanley has been engaged in behaviours with another dog that has caused injury, when in no way stating that that didn't occur. However, things like the fact that it was uncorroborated and the only other people there were the owners of the dog that was injured. There was an instance that took place and Stanley was not in control. However, that is a single report, and we believe that the council should consider the broader things, which include the further reports that we initially submitted and the further reports that Dina has. Yes, and that is all.
Thank you. Nothing further, Dina? Okay.
I cannot discuss it in private. I cannot say anything. I would like to add just one or two sentences in private, if that is okay.
Dina would like to make one or two sentences to us in private and confidential. I'm willing to do that if it's directly relevant to the incident. Okay. So to do that, we need to move a resolution to go into a confidential session, and then people who are on Zoom would need to leave the session. So have you got the resolution there for me?
So through the chair, can we just get clarity on roughly what it is, so we can move into confidential and have the right grounds for that?
Just quickly as well, in terms of Zoom, would I also need to jump off Chairman for confidentiality, or as a representative, Dina, is it all right if I stay on the call?
You would stay on the call, but we see with council meetings, you can't just go into competence
Yes, I
because you want
understand.
to. So you can see that
Yes.
that we need to have particular reasons to do that, and it needs to be relevant to the incident, not background of your lives or.
Chairwoman, would it be all right if we took a break for 5 minutes and I just called Dina just quickly to see what it is she wants to discuss, to see if it would be appropriate to.
Yeah, we can adjourn. Yeah. Okay, I'm happy to do that. We're going to adjourn for say 5 minutes.
Yes, that would be.
And but are you really clear, Grace, around
yes,
the matter of going into confidence?
Yes, and that anything that is being brought up is directly on whether or not the incident occurred, rather than the background too.
Yeah, thank you. So we'll come back in 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Chairwoman.
So everybody's back on Zoom. Is it, Grace?
Yes, I am, Chairwoman. Thank you. I've had a discussion with Dina. We don't believe that it is necessary for us to go into a private session. She just wanted to me to make one final statement in response, if that is permitted.
Sure.
Apologies. Just again, in reference to the report, Dina does want to emphasise the fact that with the report that was the main reason for the menacing classification being imposed, that the council should be wary in attaching too much weight to that. The first being that it was uncorroborated, as we've said. The other dog involved was owned by the people who owned that dog, who obviously, if their dog was involved and was aggressive in that incident, they would be unwilling to mention that, understandably so. So, as we've said, the injuries that were caused, there's no guarantee that they were caused by a bite. They equally could have been caused just through a rough play that then escalated. There's no reason to believe that Stanley would have been aggressive. And we do believe that it is important to highlight the fact that there has been significant tension between the neighbours for various things. We are in no way suggesting that there wasn't an incident between the dogs. We accept that Stanley left the property and encountered Arlo, and injuries were caused to both dogs. However, the nature of the attack and the aggression of that attack, we believe, needs to be assessed against that background, and again against the fact that it was not witnessed by anyone further. It was only by the dog owner of the dog that suffered injury and also caused injury to Stanley.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to adjourn the meeting now, and we'll go into deliberations and make our decision. And that'll involve people on Zoom going into a waiting room, for those that wish to wait for that. And if you would leave the room, please, and you're welcome to wait outside. And we'll let you know when we're coming back into open meeting or meeting, and the decision will be made. Yeah.
It's not just between Stanley and Arlo, there were two other dogs involved too. It was not just between Stanley and Arlo, who was the visiting dog, because the neighbor had two other dogs. There were three dogs, plus Stanley joining in with the playful catching a stick thing. And it was just four dogs playing with each other. So whether it was Stanley who caused the injury, we don't know.
Thank you.
Four dogs involved. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just wait for the Zoom people to be brought back in. While our deliberation period doesn't seem very long, we've been listening for the hour that we've been here together. And of course, we've read very carefully all of the information that's been provided in the report, including the unredacted statements from you. Yeah. And we read them very, very carefully. And but we're left now to make a decision as to whether we'll move a resolution, or somebody will, that we receive the report and that we either uphold the classification or rescind the classification. But and that comes to councillors. This comes to you to make somebody to move.
I'm happy
one or the
to
other.
move that we receive the classification appeal report and that we uphold the classification of menacing for Stanley, owned by Diana Schultz and Paul Atkinson. The reason being that the evidence that I heard was the incident took place and the other dog was attacked, and I've read the vet's report and clearly there was injuries to the other dog.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm willing to second that. I just can say something to you both. Obviously, Stanley is a very much loved dog.
Yes.
And it's got a very, very good owner. And I support you on that. I support what you've been doing since the attack. However, it still doesn't take away the fact that the attack happened. So I just say, keep up the good work with Stanley. I'm sure he'll be a kind of loving animal for you for years to come.
Thank you. So I'll be supporting the resolution that's been moved and seconded, and primarily because I accept the statements that an attack took place and there has been a wound through the dog fight. And it's difficult in that I think every case where we've had people come into the hearings, people give many, many, many instances and references around what great natured dogs they are, all the times where they've been non-aggressive, and there'll be hundreds of them. But there's this one incident where that hasn't been the case, and that's the thing that we have to put our focus to and ensure that that could never happen again. And there's no possibility of that happening again. I think, I imagine that Sandy and her work, because there's a sort of a hierarchy of classifications, I imagine she may have considered the dangerous dog classification, which involves the fencing and of a property so that the dog is contained there. That isn't what happened. So this is the lowest level of intervention that can be made by council. And essentially that requires that a muzzle is used when Stanley's out with you. And I suppose, you know, when dogs aren't with their people, they do behave differently, of course. And yeah, I'd like to acknowledge all the things that you've done in terms of your property and securing that. That'll be very good for Stanley, but also your own peace of mind, I imagine, but also the work that you're doing with dog behaviour people to be tuning in with them. So that's why I'll be supporting the resolution that so that leaves it for you to move. You've moved it? Okay, so then I put it to a vote. So all those in favour of the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those against? None, so it's carried. So the classification will be upheld. Which leaves us to anything further? Governance vote? No, which leads me to close the meeting, and I'll finish with a karakia. He karakia tātou a tawhiri mai ngā hua o te tai ao, mai a papa tonu ki o tākutu nei, kia rangi nui e tu i honei, tuturu whakamaua ki a Tina, Tina hui e tai.
Tai ki e.
Thank you.